I'm very excited to present a gift that Andres gave me, Spiderman set only duel commanders. They are designed to play well against each other. I would say they are between a 2 and a 3 for a 4% pod. And if you go outside the universe, both of these decks are definitely super upgradable. Um, but we just wanted to play with the inset restriction theme that we have been doing in the last few videos. So the commanders are Cosmic Spider-Man and Norman Osborn, and I'll do a deck tech in a bit. They come in this nice little gift box. Each of the boxes has the commander that you can slide out like this. Very nicely done, very well designed. And then you can place them facing outwards in the box. It comes with nice little Spider-Man themed red and blue dice, pretty token, and then that's it. I will showcase the deck tech in a little bit. The box beautifully wraps up like this, and then you can see the commanders, and this is the box. I'll be back in a bit. Norman Osborn is a very powerful 2-mana commander. It is a dual-faced card. On the front we have Norman Osborn, 1 and 1 blue for a 1/1 creature. It cannot be blocked. Whenever Norman Osborn deals combat damage to a player, he connives. Connive mechanic says draw a card, then discard a card. If you discarded a non-land card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, and then for 1 and Grixis colors, you may transform this. The important part is you can cast it on the backside as well directly if necessary, but my experience is you almost never do that in this deck. On the backside, he is a 3/3 flying menace. Spells you cast from your graveyard cost 2 less to cast. And then there is an ability, Goblin formula, which says each non-land card in your graveyard has Mayhem. The Mayhem cost is equal to its mana cost. Mayhem mechanic is you may cast a card from your graveyard for its Mayhem cost if you discarded it this turn. Timing rules still apply. So just from the commander you can tell that you want to be conniving a lot, drawing and discarding, and then trying to cast the discarded cards for sometimes cheaper to get good effects. So that is the Mayhem part of it. This set has a limited amount of ramp available because of the inset restrictions. There was no commander extras printed, no supplemental products. So the usual mana rocks and ramps and protection spells are not available. So we have to make do with what we can. Some of the ways to get some ramp in this deck are cards such as Molten Man Inferno Incarnate. When it enters, search your library for a basic mountain, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Molten Man gets +1/+1 for each mountain you control, but when it leaves, there's a penalty, you have to sacrifice a land. Electro Assaulting Battery is a 2/3 flyer. You don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. When you cast an instant or sorcery, you add red mana. When Electro leaves battlefield, you may pay X, and then he deals X damage to a target player. Very good effect. Tombstone is a cost reducing card. It's a 2/2. When it enters, return target villain card from your graveyard to your hand. Villain spells you cast cost 1 colorless less to cast. Needless to say, this deck has a lot of villains. J. Jonah Jameson, not exactly a villain, but is an honorary villain in this deck because he hates Spidey. It's a 3 mana 2/2. When it enters, suspect up to 1 target creature. Basically, you put a menace counter on that creature. And whenever a creature you control with menace attacks, you create a treasure token. Common Crook is a basic 2/2, but when it dies, it creates a treasure token. Next, let us look at some of the cards that support the connive mechanic. We have Prowler, Clawed Thief, which is a 2/3 menace. Whenever another villain you control enters, Prowler connives. Mechanical Mobster is a 2/1. When it enters, exile up to one target card from a graveyard. Target creature you control connives. Scorpion, Seething Striker. It's a Death Touch 3/3. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, target creature you control connives. Mob Lookout is a 0/3. When it enters, target creature you control connives. Dog Ox Henchman. It has Flash, it's a 2/1, and whenever it attacks, it connives. Next, let's look at some of the cards that work with Mayhem. Raging Goblinoid is a 5/4 for 5 mana. It's hasty, but it can be cast for 3 mana as its Mayhem cost. Ultimate Green Goblin is a 5/4 for 3 mana. At the beginning of your upkeep, discard a card, then create a treasure token, and its Mayhem cost is 3. The important part here is it makes your treasure token, which is good ramp, and it lets you discard cards that let you trigger their Mayhem if possible. So it's a very good card in this deck. Swarm is a 2/2 flyer with Flash that you can cast for 1 Mayhem cost. Carnage Crimson Chaos. When it enters, return target creature with mana value 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. We have quite a few cheap creatures that you can return this way. That creature attacks each combat if able, and if it deals combat damage, you need to sacrifice that creature. Carnage himself has a Mayhem cost of 2. Chameleon, Master of Disguise, is a very powerful card. It's a 2/3 and enters as a copy of a creature you control, except his name remains Chameleon, so this works around the legend rule if you want to copy a nice legendary creature you control. Also note, it enters as a copy without targeting, and it also has a Mayhem cost of 3 mana. So let's move on to the next set of villains. These support draw and discard effects. Green Goblin Revenant is a 3/3 for 5 mana. It's Flying Death Touch. When it attacks, discard a card, then draw a card for each card you have discarded this turn. Stegron is a 5/4 with Menace, but you can discard it to give a creature +3/+1 until end of turn. Inner Demon Gangsters. When on the battlefield, you can discard a card to buff this. Again, works very well with giving other cards Mayhem abilities. Alien Symbiosis is an enchantment. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1, has Menace, and is a symbiote. You may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a card in addition to paying its other costs. Once again, goes well with the Mayhem mechanic. Since you'll be discarding a lot of cards, there are a few cards that can add extra value out of the graveyard even if you don't cast them for their Mayhem abilities. Beetle Legacy Criminal is a 4 mana 3/3 flyer. When it's in your graveyard, you can exile it from your graveyard to put a counter on target creature, and that creature gains flying until end of turn. Spider Slayer Hatred Hound is a 2/1. When it deals damage to a spider, destroy that creature. For 6 mana, exile that card and create 2 tapped 1/1 colorless robot artifact creatures with flying. Venom Evil Unleashed is a 5 mana 4/5 with Death Touch. From the graveyard, you can exile it for 3 mana to put 2 counters on a target creature, and that creature gains Death Touch until end of turn. And finally, Morbius is a 4 mana 3/1 with Flying Vigilance Lifelink, but you can exile that card from your graveyard to look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. So very good effect here. Next, let us look at some card draw. Black Cat Cunning Thief is a 5 mana 2/3. When Black Cat enters, look at the top 9 cards of target opponent's library, exile 2 of them face down and put the rest on the bottom. You may play the exiled cards for as long as they remain exiled. You can use any mana to do this. So this is some sort of pseudo card draw here, and steal some good cards from the opponent's deck. Venom is a 6 mana 6/4. He has Menace. Whenever another creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Venom, and if that creature was a villain, draw a card. Superior Foes of Spiderman, 3 mana 3/3 with Trample. Whenever you cast a spell with mana value 4 or greater, you may exile the top card of your library. If you do, you may play that card until you exile another card with this creature. And finally, we have Oscorp Research Team. It's a very slow card draw engine. For 7 mana, you can draw 2 cards. Not a super powerful card, but in a pinch, it can get you the cards you need. Next, let us look at some villains that have other abilities and enhance the deck. Vulture Scheming Scavenger is a 6 mana 4/6 with flying, but it has a Lord effect. Whenever Vulture attacks, other villains you control gain flying until end of turn. Mysterio is a 4 mana 3/3 that when it enters, it creates a 3/3 blue illusion villain creature token for each non-token villain you control. And you lose those tokens when Mysterio leaves the battlefield. But this could create a few tokens for you to play around with. Morlun, Devours of Spider, is a X spell and it has lifelink. When it enters with X +1/+1 counters on him. And when he enters, he deals X damage to target opponent and the lifelink kicks in. So this can be a pretty powerful spell. Shocker is a 6 mana 5/5 during your turn. Shocker has first strike, and when Shocker enters, he shocks something. Clever Impersonator enters as a copy of any non-land permanent, not just yours, your opponent's as well. So this can be a villain or some very good creature or some other non-land permanent an opponent controls as well. Flying Octobot is a robot villain that grows whenever a villain enters the battlefield. Dark Oak Sinister Scientist is a 4/5 for 5. If you have 8 or more cards in your graveyard, it has a base power 8/8 and it has hexproof if you have another villain. So this can be a big beater. Symbiote Spawn. Whenever this creature dies, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. And finally, Grendel, Spawn of Null. It's a flying Death Toucher 3/3. So these are all the support villains. Now let's look at some interaction. Unstable Experiment. Target player draws a card, then up to 1 target creature you control connives. Whoosh, you can bounce something to its owner's hand. If you kick it, you can draw a card. Mystic Confluence is a great card. Counterspell. Infernal Grasp, to destroy target creature, you lose 2 life. So Scorpion Sting gives -3/-3 to target creature. Saw in Half is a very interesting card. It destroys a creature and creates tinier copies of that creature, and some interesting tricks are possible with this card. Terminate, destroy target creature. The Spots Portal is a weird type of removal. It puts target creature onto the bottom of its owner's library. Let's move on to some sorceries. We have Feed the Swarm, destroy target creature or enchantment. We have Pumpkin Bombardment. As an additional cost, you can discard a card or pay 2, and it deals 3 damage to target creature. Villainous Wrath, target opponent loses life equal to the number of creatures they control, then destroy all creatures. Venom's Hunger is cheaper if you control a villain. Destroy target creature, you gain 2 life. Hex destroys 6 target creatures. Lethal Protection, destroy target creature, return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Then finally we have Relentless Assault. Untap all creatures that attack this turn. After this main phase, there is an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. Very good to finish someone off with that final damage. Sandman's Quicksand is 3 mana to give all creatures -2/-2, but if you cast it for its 4 mana mayhem cost, only opponent's creatures get the nerf. Behold the Sinister Six is a 7 mana sorcery that returns up to 6 target creature cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. So very powerful effect here. Prison Break, you can return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for 5 mana. It also has a 4 mana mayhem cost. Let's look at some other interactions with enchantments and so on. We have Spider-Man No More, Enchant Creature. Enchanted creature is a citizen with base power and toughness 1/1. It has defender and loses all other abilities. Sometimes it's more useful to nerf an opponent's creature, especially Cosmic Spider-Man in these dual decks, than to kill it outright to prevent it from being recast. So this is a very good effect. Robotic Mastery provides a buff to your creature, gives it +2/+2, but also creates 2 1/1 colorless robot artifact creatures with flying. Shadow of the Goblin is a 2-mana enchantment. At the beginning of your first main phase, discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Very good with our discard and mayhem effects. And then there is an ability, whenever you play a land or cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, this enchantment deals 1 damage to each opponent. So mayhem will make this ping each opponent. And finally, we have Death of Gwen Stacy. It's a saga that does multiple things. The first chapter says destroy target creature. Next, each player may discard a card. Each player who doesn't loses 3 life. We like to discard in this deck, so this is very good for us. Exile any number of target players' graveyards. And we'll round it up with Maximum Carnage, 5-mana saga. Until your next turn, gold all creatures. Second chapter says add 3 red mana. And the third chapter says deal 5 damage to each opponent. Finally, let us look at some non-basic lands. There is Vibrant Cityscape that allows you to fix your mana a little bit. You have Oscorp Industries, which is a land that has mayhem. And when it enters from your graveyard, you lose 2 life. Daily Bugle Building allows you to filter for any mana, but it also, for 1 mana, makes a target legendary creature get menace. And then we have Ominous Asylum and Sinister Hideout. These are the Surveil lands. And then we have a bunch of basics. Andres has taken great care to make sure, for flavor reasons, that the basics here are the basics, not the full art. That was it for this deck tech. I'll see you guys in a bit with the Cosmic Spider-Man deck tech. Thank you. Let's take a look at the Cosmic Spider-Man deck now. Cosmic Spider-Man is Wooburg 5/5, flying, first strike, trample, lifelink, and haste. At the beginning of combat on your turn, other spiders you control gain flying, first strike, trample, lifelink, and haste until end of turn. This is a very powerful commander. 5 mana is the tricky part in this with this set restriction. Obviously the deck runs a lot of spiders because this is a very powerful lord effect for all spiders. The goal for this deck is to just try to smash in with a lot of spiders. There are some sub-themes to the deck. There is a +1/+1 counter sub-theme, and there is a web slinging sub-theme, and we will see those in a bit. But the most important part of a 5-mana deck, a 5-color deck, is basically you want to find ways to find mana and or ramp. So let's take a look at that first. Guy in the Chair is a 3-mana 2/3 mana dork, but for 3 mana it can also add a +1/+1 counter on a spider. Spider Manifestation is a 2/2 with reach, but also adds red or green mana. Whenever you cast a spell with mana 4 or greater, you can untap this creature. Spider-Man Brooklyn Visionary has web slinging for 3. When Spider-Man enters, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tab, then shuffle. Spider-Bot is a 2-mana 2/1 artifact creature with reach. When it enters, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, and then put it on top of your library. Subway Train is a 2-mana vehicle. When it enters, you may pay 1 green. If you do, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. It can be crewed for 2 power. Next, let's look at the must-haves in any Spider-Man deck. Aunt May is a 0/2 creature. Whenever another creature you control enters, you gain 1 life. If it's a spider, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Mary Jane Watson, whenever a spider you control enters, draw a card. This happens once each turn. And then MJ Rising Star is a 2/3 for 3 mana. She has Vigilance. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on MJ. So you can already see some of the +1/+1 counter idea here. And we'll continue that with some more +1/+1 counter synergies. Miles Morales is a flip card. 1 and 1 green for a 1/2. When he enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. And for 6 mana, you can flip him into Ultimate Spider-Man. Note, you can also cast him for his flip cost. First Strike and Haster, 4/3. It has an ability Camouflage for 2 colorless. Put a +1/+1 counter on Ultimate Spider-Man. He gains hexproof and becomes colorless until end of turn. Whenever you attack, double the number of each kind of counter on each spider and legendary creature you control. Extremely powerful effect. Spider-Punk is a 2/1 with Riot. The Riot mechanic says this creature enters with a choice of a +1/+1 counter or haste. Other spiders you control have Riot. And then spells and abilities cannot be countered. Damage cannot be prevented. So a lot of keywords and abilities on this creature. Very powerful effects. Spider-Man Peter Parker. It's a 4/4 flyer. When you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Iron Spider Stark Update is a 3 mana 2/3 with Vigilance. You can tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on each artifact creature and or vehicle you control. And then for 2 mana, you can remove 2 +1/+1 counters from amongst artifacts you control to draw a card. Spider, piloted by Penny, is an artifact creature 4/4 with Vigilance. When Spider enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Aranya, the Heart of the Spider, is a 3 mana 3/3. Whenever you attack, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature. Whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Twisted Spider Clone. When this creature enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. So this can give a quick buff to your entire team if you have already been putting +1/+1 counters. So that's it for the +1/+1 counter strategies. Let's take a look at the web slinging mechanic. I'll start with Silk Web Weaver. It's a 4 mana 3/5 with web slinging. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 token, and then for 5 mana it buffs creatures for +2/+2 and gives them Vigilance. Web Sling itself says you may cast this spell for its web slinging cost if you also return a tapped creature you control to its owner's hand. Most of the web slinging costs are cheaper than the original CMC of the card, so this makes it a good cost reducer type of effect. Peter Parker is a very impactful card. It's a 2 mana 0/1. When it enters, create a 2/1 green spider creature token with reach. And for 1 and banned colors, transform Peter Parker. On the flip side, Peter Parker is Amazing Spider-Man with Vigilance and Reach, and each legendary spell you cast that is 1 or more colors has web slinging for banned. This is a great cost reducer, and we have a lot of legendary spiders in the deck. So if you get to flip him, we can have some nut plays. Spider's Man Heroic Horde, 2 mana 2/3. When it enters, if they were cast using web slinging, you gain 3 life and create 2 tokens. The web slinging cost on this one is higher than its CMC. Spider UK is a 3/4 with web slinging for 3. When you cast it, at the beginning of your end step, if you If 2 or more creatures enter the battlefield under your control this turn, you draw a card and you gain 2 life. Spiderman India is a 5 mana 4/4 with web slinging for 3. Whenever you cast a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature you control. It gains flying until end of turn. Scarlet Spider Ben Riley. It has web slinging for red and green. It has trample. It's a 4/3, and if it was cast using web slinging, he enters with X +1/+1 counters on him, where X is the mana value of the returned creature. So you could make Scarlet Spider really big by returning one of your bigger CMC creatures back to hand. And then we have Spider-Man Miles Morales, 5/5 Vigilance for 6 mana, Vigilance and Trample actually. Whenever Spider-Man enters or attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. Those creatures gain Trample until end of turn. It should actually be in this pile. Then let's look at a bunch of other Spider cards in the deck. They perform various different roles. Radioactive Spider is a 1 mana 1/1 with Reach and Death Touch, and for 2 colorless you can sack it to search your library for a Spider hero card, reveal it and put it into your hand. Very powerful card. Ghost Spider Gwen Stacy is a 5 mana 4/4 with Menace. When she attacks, she deals X damage to defending player, where X is the number of attacking creatures. Ezekiel Sims Spider Totem is a 5 mana 3/5 with Reach, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, it buffs 1 spider with +2/+2. Spectacular Spider-Man is a 2 mana 3/2 with Flash, and for 1 colorless it can gain flying, and for 1 colorless you can sack it to give other creatures you control hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Spider-Gwen's Free Spirit is a 2/3 with Reach. When she becomes tapped, you may discard a card. If you do, you draw a card. Madam Web Clairvoyant is a 4/4 for 6 mana. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast spider spells and non-creature spells from the top of your library. Whenever you attack, you may mill a card. A good way to filter out cards you may not want, and a great way to play spider spells from the top. Sensational Spider-Man is a 3 mana 3/3. Whenever he attacks, tap target creature defending player controls and stun it. Then you may remove up to 3 stun counters from among all permanents. Draw cards equal to the number of stun counters removed this way. Spider Ham. When it enters, create a food token. It's a 2/2 and has a Lord effect. In this deck it says other spiders get +1/+1, but it gives that to a bunch of other creature types. Spider Bite, Web Warden. When Spider Bite enters, return up to 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Spider Woman, Stunning Savior, has a bit of a stacks effect. She's a 2/2 flyer but makes artifacts and creatures that your opponent control enter tapped. Spider Girl Legacy Hero. During your turn, Spider Girl has flying. When Spider Girl leaves the battlefield, create a 1/1 green and white human citizen token. So those were all the spiders in the deck. Let's look at some support cards. Let's look at some artifacts and enchantments now. Biogenic Carapace is an artifact equipment. When it enters, attaches itself. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, and when it deals damage to a player, draw a card. Combat damage, draw a card. Costume Closet enters with a couple of counters on it. You can tap it to move a counter, and whenever a modified creature leaves the battlefield, you put a counter back on this artifact. Peter Parker's Camera is a 1 mana artifact. It enters with 3 film counters on it, and for 2 mana you can tap it to remove a film counter to copy target activated or triggered ability you control. We have a lot of spiders with ETBs, so this is a very powerful effect. Next we look at some sagas. We have Origin of Spider-Man, which chapter 1 says create a token, chapter 2 puts a counter on a target creature you control and it becomes a legendary spider hero, and chapter 3 says target creature you control gains double strike until end of turn. Then we have Clone Saga, which surveils 3 in the first chapter. In the second chapter, when you cast a creature spell, copy it, except the copy is not legendary. And then finally, in the third chapter, choose a card name, and when a creature of that card name deals damage to a player, draw a card. Amazing Alliance is an enchantment with an anthem effect. Creatures get +1/+1. Whenever you attack with one or more legendary creatures, you gain that much life. Friendly Neighborhood enchants target land. When it enters, create 3 tokens. Enchanted land has 1 colorless and tap it. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature you control. Finally, we have With Great Power. Enchant a creature you control, it gets +2/+2 for each aura and equipment attached to it. This is not very powerful in this deck because we don't have too many auras and equipments, but it's still a decent buff. But more importantly, all damage that would be dealt to you is dealt to the enchanted creature instead. So that makes it a very good card in this deck. Then we have Wall Crawl, which is a 4 mana enchantment. When it enters, you create a 2/1 token, and then you gain 1 life for each spider you control. It also has an anthem effect. Spiders you control get +1/+1 and cannot be blocked by defenders. Next we have Web Up. Basically, when it enters, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. Finally, we have a very impactful enchantment, Web of Life and Destiny, 8 mana, but it has Convoke, so your creatures can help you cast that spell. At the beginning of combat on your turn, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from them onto the battlefield and the rest go to the bottom. So very powerful effect to cheat out some spiders for free. Let's look at some interaction now. We'll start with some instants. We have Tangle, which is a fog effect, but more importantly, each attacking creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Secret Identity turns target creature you control into a citizen with base power and toughness 1/1 and gains hexproof. Or until end of turn, target creature becomes a hero with base power and toughness 3/4 and gains flying and vigilance. So very useful modal spell. Terrific Team Up costs 2 less if you target a permanent with CMC 4 or greater. 1 or 2 target creatures you control each get +1/+0. Then they deal damage equal to their power to target creature and opponent controls. Wisecrack is a 3 mana instant. Target creature deals damage equal to its power to itself. If that creature is attacking, it deals 2 damage to that creature's controller. Then we have Sudden Strike to destroy a target attacking or blocking creature. Spectacular Tactics. You can put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control and give it hexproof. Or you can destroy a target creature with power 4 or greater. Strength of Will is a very powerful instant for 2 mana. Until end of turn, target creature you control gains indestructible, and whenever this creature is dealt damage, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. Then we have a X spell, Silk Guard. It's an instant which says put +1/+1 counter on each of up to X target creatures you control. Auras, equipment, and modify creatures you control gain hexproof until end of turn. So buffs the team and protects them. Then we have Amazing Acrobatics, which is a modal spell. You can counter a spell or tap 1 or 2 target creatures. School Days is also a modal instant. You can draw 3 cards, or you can counter target spell and draw 1 card. Then we have a couple of combat tricks. We have Grow Extra Arms, which costs 1 less if it targets a spider and gives the creature +4/+4 until end of turn. Double Trouble is a very powerful effect in this deck. It doubles the power of each creature you control until end of turn. A few sorceries now. We have Kapow. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, then it fights a creature an opponent controls. Venom Blast is a 4 mana sorcery to put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, and then it punches an opponent's creature. Hero's Hangout is a modal sorcery. You can choose one, exile the top 2 cards of your library, choose one of them. You may play that until the end of your next turn. Or 1 or 2 target creatures each gets +1/+1 and gains first strike until end of turn. Romantic Rendezvous allows you to discard a card and then draw 2 cards. Now let's look at the lands. We have Vibrant Cityscape to fetch a land that you need. Multiversal Passage. As this land enters, choose a basic land type. Then you may pay 2 life. If you don't, it enters tapped. This land is the chosen type, so very good to fix a color that you need. Urban Retreat. Land enters tapped, taps for banned colors, but it's very interesting because you can return a tapped creature you control to its owner's hand and then put this land onto the battlefield for 2 mana. So it's kind of like a pseudo ramp. Oscorp Industry has Mayhem, and if it enters from the graveyard, you lose 2 life. Daily Bugle Building fixes your mana and also gives menace to a legendary creature you control. And then we have the 5 Surveil lands and then a bunch of basics. Once again, for flavor reasons, Andres has made sure that the Spidermen actually have all the full art foil spider lands. So that's it for this deck tech. Hopefully you like this. We enjoy doing these sets with the single set restriction. It puts a finite limit to how much we tune a particular deck. So that restriction is very fun, and also the fact that you might or might not have all the typical commander staples makes deck building different. So it was a fun experience to build these decks, and we have really played with both of these, and they fairly match each other. So it was a really thoughtful gift. Much appreciated. Thanks for watching.